Hello, and welcome to a CIS 115 video web lecture. For best viewing, you're going to want to set the resolution of the YouTube video from 360p to 720p. Also, you may want to watch it in full screen. This button here will allow you to play the video in full screen. Down in the left hand corner is the play and pause buttons. If at any time you want to leave full screen, you can hit exit or escape on your keyboard. Taking it back to full screen, you can click the full screen button. By doing this process, you can follow along with us as we give you the video. Now that we've got our graphical components set, we want to next open up the blocks editor such that we can attach code to the specific blocks. First thing we do, we'll click the blocks editor button right here. You'll see, to save a little bit of time, I already have it open. That should pop up in a second window, the App Inventor Android blocks editor. You'll notice across the top we have the ability to save, undo, and redo actions. We also have here new emulator and connect to device. Because we do not have an actual phone connected, we actually have to create what's called an emulator, which is going to emulate a real phone. I'm going to go ahead and click that because it takes some time for this to load. You can see here possibly 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to click OK to close this button, but keep the emulator open. It's now hidden behind the blocks editor. You will notice that when the emulator does open, you get two windows, the actual emulator and this DOS box here. You can just leave this minimized. Do not close it. If you close this, it will close the emulator as well. Then you'll just have to wait for the emulator to load back up. Going to minimize that. Next, connect to device. Once I've started an emulator, I can click connect to device, and there's the emulator that's being loaded. I'm going to go ahead and click that again because it takes a little while for this to load. As you can see, it's still loading. We'll wait for that. Up here, we've got one more option. We can zoom in or zoom out, looking at our editing area. Because we don't have anything in our editing area right now, zooming in and zooming out is not going to do us any good. Trash can down here to throw away unwanted stuff. Here's where we can add sort of code to our editing area. First, we have built-in options, which allow us to handle text, list, mathematical operations, logic, true or false, not and or, to see if two things are equal, controls, an if else, and some loops, and then predefined colors. The next section is the My Blocks area. This is where you'll find all of the blocks that you created here in the graphical editor. The emulator's loaded. So you'll notice calculate button, distance label, minutes label, miles per hour label, and then the respective text boxes. If we had not renamed these, we wouldn't be able to know which was which. Let's step back to the emulator. I can see this little yellow emulator button up here. That's telling me that it's not quite loaded to the device. When the device loads, we need to drag the lock over to unlock it. It's still waiting to connect. Now, oh, here it starts going. I was going to say I was going to minimize it while it connected, but we'll give it another little bit. Listening to App Inventor. And what we should see when this loads up is our graphical screen. It doesn't have any code behind it yet, but when it loads, there it goes. So we here have enter miles per hour, the text box, enter minutes, the text box, distance traveled, the disabled text box. We can't enter any text in here, and then our calculate distance button. So what we want to do is add code such that when the user clicks the calculate distance button, it will actually calculate the distance traveled in that many minutes. So there are a couple things we want to do. We want to create 4 variables. These variables are going to be used to 1, hold the miles per hour, 2, hold the minutes entered, 3, hold the result of that calculation. And then the fourth variable, we actually want to convert miles per hour into miles per minute. That way we can multiply miles per minute times minutes to get our distance traveled. So to declare and create variables, I'm going to go to built-in and definition. When I click on definition, I've got 5 options, and right here we see DEF, that's short for defined variable. Going to drag this over. Going to do this 4 times. And you see that the names of these variables are variable 1, variable 2, variable 3. Horrible variable names. Let's delete those. I'll call this one miles per hour using good naming conventions. Lowercase to start the variable, capital case for all other words smushed together. I'll call this one miles per minute. I'll call this one minutes. And I'll call this one distance traveled. Now you'll notice this little exclamation mark. It says these are empty, so they won't be sent to the phone. That's because you see the little puzzle pieces don't have anything to connect to them. As of right now, we don't have any values for these because the application hasn't been set, but I'm going to put default values. If we think back to our Alice world, those would be placeholders. So I'm going to come to math, grab a number, grab another number, another number, and a final number. I'll drop these and connect. I'm just going to leave this number 123, 123, 123. What the value there is right now doesn't matter. We just need to set it to be an initial placeholder value. Now the next thing we want to do is put the code in such that when this button, which is our calculate button, is clicked, do something. So if I come to my blocks and I need to find my calculate button, here it is. When I click on this, I need to figure out what code block to pull over when the calculate button is clicked. Do what's inside here. And look, this top one's exactly what we want. When the calculate button is clicked, do whatever code is inside here. So I'm going to drag this and drop it. Now you notice this little puzzle piece has this little kind of downward triangle, maybe a chevron-like thing. That means that I can't just drag and drop these inside here. They don't match. I'm going to have to find some other things to put in there. Now the first 2 things I want to do here is set the miles per hour variable to what the user has entered in the miles per hour text box. So to set the variable, I can go to my definitions and set miles per hour to. And see how that connects. Next I'm going to go set minutes to. And this will allow me to set the miles per hour variable and the minutes variable. Next thing I need to do is figure out what to set these to. Well, miles per hour, that's user entered from the miles per hour text box. And if I click on this, I need to find the text that's actually in the miles per hour text box. And we can see there's 2 options. This one will allow you to set the text. This one will allow you to get the text. I'm going to take the one that allows me to get the text, and it fits. Get the text from the miles per hour text box and store it in the miles per hour variable. We'll do the same thing for the minutes. Minutes text box text. Drop that and set that value and set minutes to the minutes text box text. Next, I've got this variable miles per minute. To do the calculation, distance traveled. Oh look, I have a typo there. Let's fix that really quick. Distance traveled with a capital T. To get the distance traveled in a minute going a certain miles per hour, we need to get the calculation miles per minute. So I'm going to go back to my definitions, set miles per minute to, and here's where I'm going to do a little bit of math. If you're going 45 miles per hour If you divide that by 60, you'll get how many miles per minute you're going. So I'm going to do a math calculation. I need to go back to the built-in blocks, math, and you'll see I've got greater than, equal to, less than or equal to, equal, not equal, plus, minus, multiply, and divide. So I'm going to grab this divide and drop it right there. And you'll see divide has two little puzzle pieces. So I need to make sure I get the ordering correct. I want to divide miles per hour by 60. So while I'm here in my math, I'm going to click on math again and get another number. I'm going to drop that in the second one. And you see how that fits nicely now? I'm going to click and change that 1, 2, 3 to be 60. Next, I need to go get the value that's stored in miles per hour. Back to my blocks, my definitions, and instead of setting miles per hour, I'm going to get the value of miles per hour and drop that in the first plus. Then I'll take the whole thing and link it to miles per minute. So now what's stored at this point right here, what's stored in miles per minute is the calculated value from miles per hour divided by 60. The last value I need to calculate is the distance traveled. And the distance traveled is going to be a calculation of the number of minutes you traveled times the minutes per hour, or I'm sorry, times miles per minute. So minutes times miles per minute will tell you how many miles you've got. And I'm going to store that in the distance traveled variable. So I'm going to get my definitions, distance traveled, set distance traveled to. This is a math calculation, so I'm going to need to get another math. Let me show you a shortcut. If I just do a regular click on the screen, I get all of my options. So click math times. So now I've got something times something else. Go back to my definitions, minutes, back to my definitions, miles per minute, minutes times miles per minute. Take this whole thing and link it to distance traveled. Now the last thing I need to do, coming back to my emulator, is I've taken in from the user the miles per hour, I've taken in from the user the minutes, I've calculated miles per minute, I've calculated the distance traveled. The last thing I need to do is set this text box to be the actual distance traveled. So to do that, I'm going to find that text box, which is distance text box, click it. Now I don't want to set the text box to the miles traveled. I actually want to find the distance text box dot text. I want to set that text to be the value. So I'm going to grab my set. Look how my set nicely clicks in with the puzzle piece. And the next thing I want to set this to is the distance traveled. So I'm going to come to distance traveled, get the puzzle piece, click it in, and that should now display the distance traveled when I click on my calculate button. Now if you look back up here at our connect device, this emulator plus right here tells me that I am connected to my emulator. So when I come to my emulator, I click on miles per hour. The emulator will pop up the number box to tell me to allow me to enter in say 45 miles per hour. How many minutes do we want to travel? Let's travel for 15 minutes. Calculate distance, and we'll go 11.25 miles in 15 minutes if we are traveling at 45 miles per hour. I'll move this so you can get a snapshot of the code. And that concludes the App Inventor web video.